everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama. Welcome to our final Robot Heroes podcast.
Today we look at the Voltron series,
Voltron,
Defender of the Universe.
From days of long ago, in the 1980s, the show started the giant robot anime craze for America as it follows five space explorers who are sent to find the legendary robot Voltron to defeat Zarkon
and the Druool
Empire.
Yeah, like it was a whole kind of a different story
than we saw. Better.
Yeah, like maybe that's what they were called. Is that what they were called in Japanese, and then they changed it, or is it really just Druool and then they decided on Gora?
Let's not confuse the viewers. So this is the original series, 1984, that we're discussing today. That is the precursor and the grandfather for Voltron, Legendary Defender, the original Netflix series. Thank God for this series, because if it hadn't been made, we never would have Voltron, Legendary Defender. We love Voltron, Legendary Defender. We don't care what the critics say. We don't care what the haters say. We don't care what the naysayers say. If we offend anyone, we're terribly sorry. We just know what we love. If you don't like this show or the other, we respect your feelings, and you have every right to feel the way you do. But for us, we love Voltron Legendary Defender, and we have nothing but gratitude for NBC Universal having this series originally on, because without it and the other sequels that came after, Voltron Force and so forth, we wouldn't have VLD. So, thank you. Now, the truth of the matter about this original series.
Yes. Now, originally, I heard about the show. I didn't even know years ago when Voltron Force came out. I thought it was just the cartoon that came out just at that time. It was based off a toy, and then that was it. I had no idea it was originally an 80s show, and that was the first attempt at a sequel.
Did watch.
Right. And I know it was an attempt to do a sequel to the original 80s series. And then when we got to Legendary Defender, and I just heard, I remember Voltron coming on, and we watched it and loved it. And they even had a special, like when the show was first out, there was like a special category on Netflix
Speaking of Legendary Defender.
Yes. There was a special category on Netflix for Voltron 84, and different people who grew up with watching the original 80s show picked their favorite episodes,
including Josh Keaton and Kimberly Brooks.
Right. And many of the writers.
Dos Santos. Keep going, but as you said, people that are involved in the new reboot.
Right. And they chose their favorite episodes for newcomers who have never heard or watched the original. So we watched the first episode they ever had on there. And Mom said,
for me.
Right. And it's like, okay, you get to see what it was like when we watched it. And then we heard From Days of Long Ago with Peter Cullen. And I was like, it's Optimus Prime narrating. Like, wow, neat. I was really excited to see it. But 5 minutes in, Mama said, oh my God, but do we really watch this? And I'm like, I regret this now.
Yes, it was a wake-up call for me, because, yes, Voltron the Universe was my childhood. And I can tell you back then, I thought Voltron was it. I love the robot most of anything else. I really didn't care for most of the characters. I know there are a lot of girls that liked Allura, and I didn't dislike her, but my favorite part was seeing them form the robot and defeat evil. That was my favorite part.
Right.
That being said, it was the 80s. It was a more innocent time. We were not technologically advanced like we are now, with animation being at the height of that it is. And I guess I forgot all that until I saw that first episode. The only saving grace was hearing Josh Keaton talk about it. Yes, I know my show. And watching that episode. But, kudos for them coming up with something different. When the show came out in 1984, there was nothing on TV like it. There was no action cartoons like this for kids that had to do with space. You had Thundercats. And you had He-Man, but they were different. Voltron had its own little niche, and I think that's why it did so well, because we thought we were seeing, at the time, which it was, the height of space exploration and animation and the cool robots doing this. And you had Transformers, of course, the Transformer animated series. But when this came out, it was groundbreaking.
Right.
Now, the only problem that this series had, well, that's not true. There were several problems for me with this series that I know now that I didn't know then. I probably did notice some of them, but one is the voice actors pretending to be women.
Yes.
The actors that they had doing the characters were fine. They were fantastic. They even had B.J. Ward, which we were very shocked to see.
Right.
But the men who were pretending to be women, and it was obvious that they weren't women, and instead of paying women to do the women's voices or having B.J. Ward just do all the voices, they would keep trying to be women. And all I could do was look in horror and then laugh, because I'm like, as a kid, I probably didn't realize they were men pretending to be women. Of course I didn't. So that was one of the big drawbacks to watching this all over again. You can't get past that fact when you're watching it. Your ears just know this is not a woman. This is a guy pretending to be a woman. Now, if it were like Brad Bird doing Edna Mode, I'd be fine, because it's perfect. But I'm telling you, it's a source of laughter to hear some of these female voices.
Oh my gosh, there was even a point where it was a mother and daughter, and mom said, this is like the best voice acting in history. And it was this grown man doing a 10-year-old's voice, going, Mother, don't leave me. And then the mom just has no emotion or empathy. It's like, my daughter, oh no, please wait for me, my daughter. It's like, okay, are you like not here today? Like, who's doing this voice?
And then another was the animation errors, which are a source of joy for Rascal. The hunk eyes.
His eyes are always crossed.
And the Pidge, as I always say, hopping around like a hobgoblin. And then you learn you're supposed to be an alien.
Which makes sense.
But all that you know is his planet got destroyed instead of Allura's in this version.
Right.
And that's the only reason you know he's an alien. Other than that, nothing about Pidge points to an alien.
Right.
Nothing.
And he's supposed to be the intelligent one of the group, which is hard to tell because he acts pretty much like everyone else, which wouldn't be a bad thing if he had more of a personality, if he was actually helpful with the computers and technology. Now, they have shown to be nice at some points, but they're kind of jerks to each other a lot.
There's not the friendliness and the camaraderie and the family vibe you get from VLD in this original.
Yeah, and I've seen like
and
one.
Hunk Garrett, oh thank goodness they changed his character for VLD, because in this one he was the biggest jerk of all.
Yeah, and he was
nothing against the voice actor.
Yeah, and unfortunately his voice actor, along with he did Hunk and Lotor, he passed away many years ago. So still respect to the voice actor, just the character was the issue.
Absolutely. The Hunk that Rascal likes is caring and supportive and a mean chef and a badass and just and highly intelligent.
Right.
And this poor version of Hunk is like,
what the heck?
Now, one thing we did forget to mention is in this version, the only child was Pidge.
Yes.
And maybe he was an adult on his alien planet. I don't know.
Yeah,
all the other characters in this version were adults. So when VLD came out and they decided that all but my Shiro would be teenagers, was a big change and an update. But it worked really well for the reboot.
Right. And yes, in the personalities, you could tell what they got and what they went for themselves, because they wanted to grow with something what they remembered. Well, you remembered a way better, intricate, mind-blowing show than what we had. That's great that you loved the show so much and you did this, but clearly there were two different, you were remembering two different shows, like with Thunder Tubbies.
And the great thing was, by seeing VLD and I having watched all the other versions of Voltron, Voltron Force, everything but the WTF Lotor, I couldn't take more than one episode of that. But you got to see what they took and picked characteristics from each version of these characters and morphed them into new, believable,
updated,
breathing characters in the Legendary Defender series.
And we also have to point out that they had to add a lot of stuff, because in the original Japanese version there was really depictions of death or blood and violence. They had to either tone it down or pretend, they're knocked out, they're unconscious, or if a character died, they would just have Peter Cullen say, okay, he recovered and he's just fine now. You never see them, but they died in the original, but they couldn't do it in the American version, so they just kind of made an extra point and say, oh, he recovered, he's fine. You're not going to see him, but he's fine. But you kind of get that pattern after a while, like, okay, no, this character didn't make it. These people didn't make it. This planet is destroyed. But they keep telling you, oh, no, they're fine. You'll just never see them again, which was the unsettling dark part of it, where VLD wasn't afraid to show the death and stuff of people blown up or making sacrifices and stuff. Well, so that's the big difference.
Also a different time period. In the 80s,
right?
I'm sure that I didn't realize any of that.
Yeah,
and it was just a different time. But now, them doing if they brought this show now, rebooted that particular show, and they showed those things, they would just have to up the rating a little. But there's just so much that's shown in movies and
it's allowed to be on syndication.
And even in animation for kids, it wouldn't even matter anymore.
Yeah, obviously. Now we gotta point out the stuff about the characters. We know that.
Before we get to the characters, let's point out the great things about this show, the original. One, again, it was groundbreaking. There wasn't anything on it like it. They had a strong female character in Allura, which hadn't been done in any animated series up to that point. Right. And then after that, you had She-Ra, which was the second one. But that was a first. You had a group of people coming from all walks of life, working together, piloting this lion as a team. And one thing that this team did is they never end up getting along. Yeah, no matter what. They didn't sugarcoat it. They didn't flesh it out. And in the end, everybody was one big family. In this one, it didn't work out that way. It was obvious it never ended that way when you finished the series. Yeah. And that was different for the 80s because there was always happy endings. Right. But in this one, there wasn't a happy ending. Yeah. And I remember you telling me that they had to make some additional episodes because the original ending wasn't a happy ending. Yeah,
they said final victory where, yes, they defeated the, might as well call them the Galra, and Lotor was gone, all of them were dead, and they lost. Well, they claimed they didn't lose Sven a second time, but they had to edit that out. And they won, everyone was fine, but then they said, okay, they still have time left, so they had to make extra episodes, so it looked like they didn't even win. It looked like that was it. Universe was safe, but then they kept going where, they all survived, they all made it. You didn't defeat the Empire, that's why we made this big deal out of it. And then all these extra episodes made in America were so bland and boring and focusing on characters that you weren't going to see again. It's like, are you planning spin-offs or something? Because who is this guy? Who is this? It's like Voltron was a secondary character and you had to focus on these random people in the war rather than the main characters. They even introduced a whole new female villain who's supposed to be, I guess, the love interest for Lotor, which that didn't work out. Right, and she ended up being popular anyway. So it went through a weird change when it got to the second part of the series.
Okay, another great thing about this show is that it introduced science fiction to kids in a way that had never been done before, and it was well received. Another great thing is Karan. I do like that they kept Karan's character from this one and put him into the VLD series. But here, he was a little different. He had a son. He was a family man. And you learn this in backstories and events that happen. Another great thing, of course, was Peter Cullen doing the voice on the intro. But people, you could not have the 84 intro working for VLD. It just wouldn't work. It would be so mismatched and wouldn't work. It worked for the time period. In the 80s, it was epic. But in 2016, no, it's not an epic theme. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm really, really sorry. But for in the 80s, it was epic and it worked. Two more great things about this show. This show started treating children like they had intelligence. They talked about, and a lot of it, when you hear the science and stuff, it's not as, some people don't agree, but it's not as developed as in Legendary Defender. But they didn't treat the kids like you're just kids and you don't understand and you're stupid. It gave you a show that had a time-lapse plot that kept developing and going forward, which had not been done at that time in the 80s. And I watched a lot of cartoons, and this was different from all of them. Yeah. And the last thing I want to mention that was great about it is B.J. Ward, because we've seen her, or heard her, I should say, in so many other animation movies and series, that this was her beginning. So we're very grateful that this gave her an opportunity to get started in voice acting. So again, thank you for Voltron 84, we'll call it, because without it, and it's a sequence series, we wouldn't have VLD.
Right.
So now, on to the characters.
Yes. Now, I know there's a lot of changes, and it looks like VLD adapted more from the Japanese version more than the Americanized version, because we see almost remake shots from the original, shout outs to the original, and even where they say some dialogue lines, and even have the zip line part in the second episode where they do the zip line. They said, why do you have zip lines? You got what do they have at the wormholes? You got all of this, but you're still doing zip lines. Like, okay, these were fashionable 10,000 years ago, so that was the excuse. But they didn't do it every episode like this one, where they got to do it every episode, and it's the same footage almost every single time. They did it once or twice in the new one, and then that was it. You know what goes on. Now, characters. They were all very different from what we know now. We didn't know it. Keith had no personality whatsoever. He was the leader, and then that was it. That's all I can say. And he looked like he was dressed like Speed Racer or something, or at least the mailman.
But you could tell that he was a version that was supposed to be popular and more well liked.
Yeah, I guess.
Keith
yeah.
of VLD.
Right. Because now new Keith was so emo, but he did grow into a great leader towards the end of the series.
He's my second favorite character. I love the VLD Keith.
Right.
Next to my Shiro, he's my second favorite character.
So yes, the original planet was called Gorn. They use that for the name of the species of aliens. And the original planet was called Altea, and then they changed it to Eris.
Right.
So, okay, so now we know there's even more stuff they adapted.
You mean the original planet was Eris, and they changed it to Altea?
No, yeah, they should. Seriously, in the Gold Lion one, it was called Altea. So they adapted more from the Japanese one than the American one.
Got it, okay.
And then, and you had Lance, who they almost kept the exact outfit. You can almost tell it was the same thing. And he was more of like, I guess, the smart aleck one, I guess. He had some scenes in there where he was kind of like a jerk at some points. And,
well, they all had jerk points, but I don't think it was seen as being jerky. Maybe it was supposed to be edgy.
Right,
he
was
80s.
Cool, and they kind of
now
it
doesn't seem edgy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had Michael Bell, who did Lance and Sven.
Yes, and Sven was originally Shiro. Then they made him. Then they made him Scandinavian in the American version. And I always laughed, like, the first couple episodes he was in, the ugly buds, and the accent was always like, what the heck is this accent? And Mama didn't even want to hear him talking, like, please stop. This accent is horrible. Stop it. It's not even right. Josh Keaton did a better accent. He only had less than an episode to do it. And then we found out he was taken out 7 episodes in. He was originally killed off, and they got his brother. But then they changed it to this version where he was taken hostage, and the brother became him. And they made him into action hero, and he actually was the most intelligent, ironically, most intelligent one out of the whole group. He was even the favorite, for according to a lot of people who were watching it, and then they had the episodes up on YouTube. So even in the 80s, Shiro was the favorite.
That is correct.
That is like the most hilarious thing.
And now we have Pidge.
Yeah, Pidge, as you call him, the Hobgoblin. People refer to him as the Gremlin. And then, changed to a girl in the new one. And you didn't know till the reveal.
In the original, Keith and Pidge were voiced by Neil Ross.
Yes.
And I think it's important to point out that for the VLD Pidge, it's obvious that the majority of her character was taken from Voltron Force.
Yes.
Because that character looks more like her than any of the other versions of Pidge.
Right.
Also, in Voltron Force, Pidge was very intelligent.
Right. They said they did fix
very
that.
likable and more like the VLD Pidge than any other version.
Right. And I did love this one scene that they had in the final season. I loved it. Shut up. And they put the 80s cartoon in there, and they pretend that was after
She's speaking in Voltron Legendary Defense.
Yes, they put the original show in there. She said, I don't sound like that, do I? Because it was always this thing the original did. It goes, no! Wah! Ah! Like, what's wrong with you? And then they, you're the pitch from that cartoon. And then she became a celebrity, and she wore the original outfit and did the voice, which is one of the greatest shout-outs ever.
Had her hair fixed that way and put the little band on.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay.
And you had, as we were speaking of, the original Allura, voiced by B.J. Ward. She actually did Hagar and
Allure. Well, she sounded like two different characters, so she did a very good job of doing that.
But I have to say that the queen of voice acting is
Cree Summer,
yes, and her Hagar is off the charts, and no other Hagar can compare to the way she does this version. I mean, it's just spectacular. So BJ Ward, thank you for giving her the base on which to create the how should I say,
I guess the starting point, I guess you could say that, or the inspiration.
The iconic Hagar that she's created. That's what I was saying.
Right. This Hagar just did and randomly, Road Beast, every episode, that was it. I can't do it, Road Beast. And every once in a while be a spy, which we know, if you watch the show, you actually can tell where they got the clone arc from, and they had the Road Beast for the first 2 seasons, only they weren't in every episode. And then you had Allura, who, the Hunk says, Allura was different. Like, yeah, obviously, very, very different. And I did like that they have her learn to become the Pilot of the Blue Line rather than just kind of rush it in. But I understood the choices for the new one. But still, and
in the new one, you have to also keep in mind that this Allura was born with a lot of abilities that the original Allura didn't have. So, of course, it made sense that she would develop and grow stronger quicker because she was born with these abilities she got for her dad. So you have to remember that.
Right, exactly.
Okay, now let's go to...
And then my favorite parts was when she got her in the line, and for some reason, it will always have her spin go,
Yes, those are Rascal's favorite parts.
She always gets her. Then they put that in the new one. That made me love it more. Okay, and then Hunk, as we mentioned, was really a jerk. He was supposed to be, I guess, the muscle. He always had cross eyes.
And
he wasn't
made
even the
jokes
mechanic.
about him being overweight and eating.
He wasn't even big. He was actually, they were all incredibly muscle. And the new one, he's kind of like a cross between heavier and muscle, which was fine because he was Samoan.
But they didn't make fun of him in the new version, which is great.
Right.
You don't have the constant overweight jokes and the eating jokes.
Yeah.
Which now just wouldn't go over, and it shouldn't.
Right.
But in the 80s, it was fair game.
They had a few jokes where he talked about food, or everything reminded him of food, but they showed he had a talent for food, too, so it wasn't just they're making fun of him, and it eventually stopped after a little bit.
Right.
And then you had...
And then, let's go to the Druools, who are the Galra in the new version, and we want to point out just a few differences. It looks like in the original, they were actually vampires. They all had these fangs.
Yeah.
And anytime they traveled, it was in a space coffin.
Right.
And the Road Beast showed up a lot of times in coffins, which they did not put in Legendary Defender, thank God. But it looks like, to me, they were space vampires.
Yeah,
That's no other way to describe them.
Pretty much.
Even Hagar had fangs like a vampire.
Exactly. And Zarkon was dressed, I guess, supposed to be like a king, but he had these weird attire, but it didn't match with everyone else. And he would have the dialogue. He's supposed to be this ruthless warrior, emperor, and then you get to Lotor, and he talks to Lotor, he always belittles him. Notor, and he always belittles him, but the dialogue he had was just ridiculous. He would go from saying, I'm the conqueror of this and that, and then at one point, he said, you don't care about my feelings, he said, quit whining, you don't have feelings. It's like, and then another one when he said, how come you won't let me fly around the plane like that on my own? Because you're a dummy and a failure. It's like, okay, I think you're supposed to be scared, and he would have the dumbest lines like that, and it was hilarious.
So,
and then,
but then you get the Zarkon and Lotor, the real Lotor, the only Lotor, AJ Lacasio, that's done in Legendary Defender, and there's no joke about any of these characters.
Right.
And the voice actors, as I mentioned, AJ Lacasio for Lotor, and Neil
Kaplan.
Neil Kaplan for Zarkon. Excellent. And again, you have to thank the original writers for creating those characters, even though they were not in the same vein as far as being serious and dominant and just not a joke in the sense of the series. They were the springboard for which these characters were developed.
Right.
And also they brought forward Hagar's cat.
Yes.
But only in a different manner. In the original series, the cat was everywhere, always around.
And watching, trying to eat the mice, yeah.
But in the new one, she only was with Nardi.
Yeah, and then it'll turn out it was her cat at first, and then Lotor had it, and then it'll be a Nardi, and then it was by itself.
Right.
So this thing was like an immortal cat just wandering from person to person at this point.
Right, and then we did mention Coram was in the original series. I don't know who the voice actor was. I'm really, really sorry. But in the new
I'm not sure
one,
either.
We have...
Reese Darby is Coran, the gorgeous man.
And I would have to say probably in the original as well as the new Voltron Legendary Defender, this character didn't get enough love and didn't get enough credit. Reese Darby is wonderful as Coran. And he brought a different version.
Right.
Because as I mentioned, the original Coran was a family man with a wife and daughter. But in this one, it looked like Voltron became his life, and the battle and the fight became his focus, and he took Allure's dad, King
Alfor.
King Alfor's family as his family. And even after all these people are gone 10,000 years later, he still doesn't shrink from the duty he swore to uphold. He still sees Allura as his daughter.
Right.
He still sees Altea as his planet and his family. And then what I do love about him is that he's quirky, but he took to, you might as well say the kids, because as they were, he took the kids and Shiro as another familiar outlet. And when he got to Earth, he just fit right in.
Right.
Every place he goes in this new version, he fits right in. And he's just one of the most adaptable characters. And it seemed the same way in the original, but he was a very adaptable character to what went on. He was open-minded. He was trusting. And when lessons had to be learned, he got them. He was always level-headed. I do like the fun parts of Reese Darby here being wacky. But I do believe that this character is a very unappreciated character.
Yeah.
Both in the 84 and Legendary Defender.
Right, because there's so much more that they could have done, and unfortunately they didn't get a chance
And he should have had a Funko.
Yes. And yes. So basically you can see all the things that were vastly different when they got to Legendary Defender. Even down to Sendak, whose name was Yorak, and it's like, who? Right. And then that was supposed to be Keith's name at first. It was hilarious how they threw that in, and I love how they throw all the references in and the shout-outs, and they're like, yeah, we know it's silly, but we love it anyway.
So if you have not seen Voltron, Defenders of the Universe, 84 version, you should watch it, not only for some laughs that I'm sure weren't intended, but just to see where this franchise started. Move on to Voltron Force, and don't do the WTF
series. What was it called?
Tour.
Third Dimension.
Yeah, the Third Dimension. Just skip that one.
Oh.
And.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there was another thing, but go ahead.
And just get yourself fully Voltron and learn where the origins of this magnificent Legendary Defender series came from.
Oh, wait, I forgot to mention one last thing. There was a character that was just referred to as the nanny for Allura, who was her caretaker. Now, most people think, like, okay, was she not in the new one? Well, they mentioned a nanny. She would look vastly different, but was only in a memory. They actually did put the nanny in there, but they gave her to Lotor, and she was like this stern general for him, a governess. And she was a governess in the original, too.
Nanny, governess.
He said, oh, is this your nanny? He said, it's governess. And Lance wouldn't stop making fun of him. So I love that they did that too.
Yes.
Alright, I think that's everything.
Again, thank you, NBC, for originally putting this show on. Thank the original writers. Actually written by Jameson Brewer. Thank you just for giving us something that has provided decades of enjoyment, whether it's for my childhood or those who watch it after. And thank you for providing the blueprint for Legendary Defender, which has become one of my favorite shows of all time, with one of my favorite characters of all time, my Shiro. I pray that despite all of this drama and things that have gone on, that at some point there will be a sequel, maybe.
Yes. The vehicle Voltron series. Yeah.
Or a movie that maybe more intricately explains what happened after
the show ends.
Yes. We really love that, and we're very grateful that you're actually putting additional seasons on DVD, and thank you for putting this entire series from 84 on DVD to be purchased, which we did purchase.
Right, and on YouTube to watch freely.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So, and thank you so much for watching our Robots Week, and I hope that you enjoyed all the podcasts we have done this week celebrating the mechanical heroes.
And if there are any you think that we should have covered, let us know in the comments below, and it may not be for Robot Week, but we will do a podcast for you. And last but not least, look forward to our podcast on Voltron Legendary Defender and how it's changed animation forever, which will be aired as a spotlight this week as well.
Yes. So, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being part of Robots Week. I'm Ask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
Farm Voltron!
Defenders of the Universe. I like the sound of it.
And reporters sitting flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. With her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight.